Hello, everyone. This is Jamin Shively, president of Radish.org, and I am here today with Mr. Ed Brodow, who is a negotiation expert, political commentator, and author of several books, the most recent of which is In Lies We Trust. Ed, welcome to our program, and thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So this is going to be just an open-ended interview discussion. You can feel free to lob questions back at me. We can make it.
Feel free.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. So I'll just kick it off with a broad, the broad general topic of this series, which is interviews with smart people about how to save the world. And so I'll just start it off with the big open question. Ed, how do we save our world?
Okay, I have a problem with the question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Because I'm not sure that attempting to save the world, or the whole idea of saving the world, really makes any sense.
Okay.
I'm a pragmatist. I don't think that we can save the world, and I'm not sure that the world needs to be saved. I think that there are certain conditions that exist on the planet in terms of the geology of the planet, in terms of the human existence on the planet. And I don't think that there's a hell of a lot that you and I can do to change all of that. So when if we're talking about changing the planet, I have a very narrow kind of a view of this. And my view is that the best thing we can do is to square ourselves away and get ourselves in good shape. And that's the best thing that we can do for the planet, especially as Americans, because I am one of the people who believes in American exceptionalism. I believe that we are an exceptional country on a broad front, not simply because of the economic advantages that we have, but also in terms of the type of government that we have. When we talked earlier, you mentioned that you've been in other countries and you noticed the difference between them and us. And I think that the big difference is that we have freedom of speech. I think freedom of speech is the core liberty, and liberty, yeah. Whatever liberty is, it's the core. And what I'm observing today is that freedom of speech is under attack everywhere, including here. It's under attack certainly in the Middle East and the Muslim world, where there is no freedom of speech. And unfortunately, the European countries, which have created this wonderful cultural gift of the world, are now in a place where they're starting to limit freedom of speech. I just read yesterday that the European Union has sent a message to the UK that the UK should insist that all newspapers stop mentioning Muslims in connection with terrorism. That's wrong. And as I understand it, the UK government has fired back saying, mind your own business. We don't limit the press unless there's something really important about it. Although the UK is also guilty of this because, like most of the countries in Western Europe, they have laws now that limit what you can say about certain things. Someone was just fined in the UK because he said something critical of Islam.
Yeah.
Well, that to me is outrageous, absolutely outrageous. I just found out that in the Netherlands they are suing Geert Wilders again. Geert Wilders is one of their politicians who was sued a few years ago. They tried to, he wasn't sued, he was prosecuted under a Dutch hate law because he criticized Islam. He was exonerated completely, and now they're after him again. I also read that the Dutch police are going to people's houses. If you post something on the internet that is critical of Islam, the Dutch police will come to your house and threaten you. Now that's what I read. I read that in Germany they're starting to threaten parents that if the parents post hateful things on the internet, that the threat is that they may have their children taken away from them. This is unbelievable. I mean, this sounds like Stalinist Russia or Nazi Germany, but that's what's going on.
Wow.
In one country, we have what I perceive as a campaign by the Democrats to limit free speech. One of the things that they want to do, and the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, has said this openly. She said that she wants to prosecute anybody who is guilty of making anti-Muslim statement. What does she call it? I forget the term she used, but if you criticize Islam, she's going to prosecute you just for that. Which I can't believe that they would, defy the First Amendment. But that's what she's saying. There's also a bill in a number of state legislatures, including California, where I live, that would make it illegal to deny climate change, to deny global warming. So in my new book, In Lies We Trust, I call global warming a hoax. They could lock me up for that. And that is a very frightening thing.
Absolutely.
So we have to safeguard our rights, especially the freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I think that America is the last bastion in the world for maintaining that. And I think that's the best contribution that we can make to saving the world. Because given the direction that's going in other parts of the world, away from freedoms, away from freedom of speech, I think that really in terms of, if you want to talk about saving the world, that's the big contribution that we can make. Now, let me spin off of that a little bit,
sure.
and tell you what I think are the biggest challenges in the world today.
Okay.
I believe that the biggest problems that we're facing are the UN, the EU, Islam, pollution, and population. Let's go backwards here. Let's start with population. I think there are too many people on the planet. I think that we need to bring that back.
Yeah.
Ridiculous argument has been made that the European countries are not, the people are not reproducing at a rate it's something like 1.3 children is the replacement rate or something like that. And a number of the countries are below that.
Yeah.
And that's being used as a rationale for bringing in people from the Middle East. Now, that's a ridiculous argument because think about what they're saying. They're saying that even though we have overpopulation, if we reduce the population, we're not going to be able to sustain human life. That's an absurd argument. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. And where is that coming from? It's coming from the globalization, quote unquote, sources. It's coming from the European Union and the United Nations. Same thing with global warming, which, as you know, I believe is a hoax. I have a whole chapter in my book entitled The Global Warming Hoax. Global warming was created by the UN, and they have just admitted that a couple of the officials at the UN have admitted that global warming is not about climate. It's not about the environment. It's a political agenda. It's an attempt to impose a globalist world order in which presumably the unelected bureaucrats of the United Nations would be telling all the rest of us what to do. And what they're trying to do is they just said they want to destroy capitalism. They want to redistribute the resources of the planet, which is a nice way of saying they want to take it away from the U.S. and give it to everybody else. So they want to take what you have. You have a nice house. You're sitting there right now, in front of your computer. They want to take all that, give it to somebody else. That's really what it boils down to. It has nothing to do with global warming, which does not exist to the extent that they are telling us. There has been no global warming in the last 20 years. All of the arguments about global warming have been debunked. The whole thing is, as I say, it's a political, not environmental argument. So I think we need to get off of that. We need to see that the UN and the EU are essentially moving in the direction of totalitarian world government, which I think should be avoided at all costs. I am very, very happy about Brexit. I applaud the British, the people in the UK for saying we don't want any part of the European Union anymore. I think the European Union is turning into a totalitarian government where they're telling everybody, these are unelected people telling countries that have elected government bodies, they're telling them that the laws that are coming out of Brussels from this unelected bureaucracy have to take precedence over the duly passed laws of the representative bodies in all of these various countries. That's totalitarian right there.
Yeah.
I think we need to push back against that. I think there's a movement afoot in Europe. They're starting to get it. They're starting to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be at the forefront of it. I think that the election of Donald Trump, which has been compared to Brexit, I think there is a real comparison. I think it's the same kind of energy. It's people saying, hey, I've had enough of all this nonsense, all this political correctness and all the rest of that.
Yeah.
So let's see. Now I've talked about the UN and the EU and population. I mentioned pollution. Yeah. Now, pollution is not the same thing as climate change or global warming.
Right.
And usually they try to, package it all together. Sure. It isn't. Yeah. When I read about all the junk that's in the ocean, garbage in the ocean, and that's garbage. That's pollution. And certainly we need to do something about that. But I think that's also a function of population. I mean, there's just so many people and so much stuff going on that if the population were brought under control, I think a lot of that would go away.
Yeah, yeah.
The last one that I mentioned is Islam. Mm-hmm. And I have been called, and I'm sure I will be called again, an Islamophobe. This term Islamophobia, which I discuss in my book, is a lot of baloney. It was created by Muslim hardliners to try to shut down criticism of Islam. Now, Islam is called a religion. Personally, I do not believe that it is a religion. I think that Islam is a totalitarian political ideology, and the primary, the thrust of Islam is to control people, social control. And the main doctrines of not radical, but Islam, we're talking about mainstream Islam, jihad, which means that we as Muslims have a duty to go out and conquer everybody else and either convert them or kill them. Muslim says you have to emulate the Prophet Muhammad. Well, if you look at the history of Muhammad and what he did, he was a murderer. Right? He went around, killing everybody, and that's how the whole religion came to be. He conquered a village by slaughtering everybody and saying, either you die or you convert. Then he went to the next village and so on until they had everybody online by the sword, conversion by the sword. So that's part of the religion. The religion also says that Jews and Christians and Hindus and anybody else are to be converted or killed. They are to be killed. That homosexuals are to be killed and throwing them off of roofs. That women are to be subjugated. That women are second-class citizens. That a man has a right to beat his wife, rape his wife. Women are just treated. I mean, it's so contrary, ironically, to all of the feminist gains that have been made in the Western world in the last 40 or 50 years. So we have an ideology that is totally at odds with the culture of the West. We have a culture that is totally at odds with ours. I call it a Stone Age culture. These people are still living in the Stone Age, chopping off hands and feet, chopping off people's heads. The idea that you can bring someone from the Middle East who is living in a Stone Age culture and put them on a plane, have them get off at Kennedy Airport in New York, and all of a sudden they're going to be an assimilated American and they're going to adopt our way of thinking and our values. It's absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. That is not going to happen. And all you have to do is look at what's going on in Europe. Angela Merkel, who I believe is psychotic, has completely destroyed Germany. How do I know this? I know this by what I've read in the papers. And I also know this because I have friends who live in Germany, and they've been telling me what's going on over there, which is much worse than anything that we're being allowed to read in the papers. The refugees, who are largely young men of draft age. Isn't that interesting? They're running around just committing all kinds of atrocities, raping women. Sweden, it's estimated that one in four Swedish women will be raped by Muslim refugees. It's just insane to try to take these people and move them into a modern culture and expect them to assimilate. So we have a serious problem, and the problem is so bad that what is happening, because they have a tremendous birth rate. Each one of these guys has 4 wives and they've got 12 kids. Within 20 or 25 years, you're going to see a majority of Muslims. If things are going the way they're going right now, you're going to see a majority in France, in the Netherlands, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Germany, in the UK. And I think that would be, frankly, a disaster. It would mean the end of Western civilization as we know it, and it would plunge the planet back into another dark age. So if we're talking about saving the planet, one of the things we have to save it from is Islam. And the whole idea, calling me a racist or a bigot or an Islamophobe, I deny that, because I deny that Islam is a religion. And I'll make one more point about that, and then I'll let you ask some questions. Did you ever see the movie Gunga Din? Remember that movie?
I may have seen a little bit of it when I was a kid, or I may have seen it. Gunga Din.
Yeah. Gunga Din is a great movie. I think it was 1939 with Cary Grant and Victor McLaglen. And they're in India. They're British soldiers in India. In the 19th century, there was a Hindu sect called the Thuggee, Thuggee, Thuggee. That's where our word thug comes from. The thugs worshiped the goddess Kali, so it was a religion. And their religion was that each member, let's say you became a member of the Thuggee cult, they gave you a strangling cord, and you had to go out and strangle people. Now, they were killing an estimated 30,000 people a year in India until the British put a stop to it. But it was a religion. Now, my question is this. If we had the Thuggee, we supposedly have freedom of religion, does that mean that we should allow the thugs to practice their religion here in the United States on the basis of freedom of religion? Would you accept that?
No.
Would anyone accept that? No, we wouldn't accept that. Well, I say there's no difference between the Thuggee and what they did and what the Muslims are doing today. They're murdering, killing. It's a murder. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who you may have heard of, who is a very famous former Muslim, she says that Islam is just immersed in murder, and it's a murder cult. Now, the pushback I get on that is, I have friends who say, you can't say that all Muslims are like that. People say, well, I know some Muslims who are really nice people and they're very peaceful and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure there are. But all of the studies and polls that have been done indicate that a vast majority of Muslims worldwide believe that the aims of ISIS are justified. They think that 9/11 was justified. They believe that murder, killing for the religion is justified. So there is a huge percentage of Muslims who are what we would call radical. The other thing is that the ones that are not, by not pushing back and trying to change the attitude of the hardliners, they're contributing to it. And we know that in Nazi Germany, the majority of the people probably were not Nazis. But look at what happened. The Nazis took over. Everybody else was quiet, and disaster. Same thing happened in Russia under Stalin, where I don't know, 70 million people were killed. Most of the Russians were not in favor of that, but because they were silent, the silent majority becomes irrelevant after a while. And when I see a Muslim walking down the street, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I want to know. I'm thinking to myself, is this a peaceful Muslim, or is this a Muslim that wants to chop off my head? And that's a serious problem. I don't see the Muslim community stepping up to the plate and saying we're against this. We think this is terrible. We think that reforms need to be made in our religion. And the reason is, I don't think it should be accorded the freedom, what we call freedom of religion. And that's where we're stuck. We're stuck in this country on this concept. And we have to deal with Islam as an invading force, as a political, an ideological movement that is the aim of which is to destroy our way of life. So I think I've done enough talking. You asked me some questions, and give me a break here.
Sure, Ed. Thank you. I'd like to drill down a little bit on you mentioned population, because overpopulation is really the driver of so much pollution and destruction around the world. So in order to get this population explosion under control, and when I say under control, I mean zero population growth. That means getting it under control. Doesn't mean you've solved the problem, but at least you've contained it. It's not growing any bigger, right? To really solve the problem, I think population likely needs to decline a bit, or we need to transform our lifestyles in order to be more sustainable. That's my view. But regardless of the various objectives, how would you envision bringing the population problem under control and ultimately solving it?
Well, first of all, it already is under control in the West. As you know, European countries are have really cut down their reproductive rates. Same thing I think is true in the United States. Where you have a problem is in Africa and in Asia, but even the Chinese. The Chinese have this law where you're only allowed to have one child. This is the sort of thing that has to happen. I think that the AIDS epidemic in Africa is kind of it's nature's way of saying, "Hey guys, cut it out." I'm not speaking about this from a religious point of view. I'm speaking purely from a biological perspective. That the Earth is saying, "Hey, there's too many of you guys here. We gotta, if you don't cut it down, we will." How to make them do it is very, very difficult. The United States has attempted to help a lot of these countries that have where there is poverty, where there's overpopulation. But generally what happens is we give them money, and the money goes into the bank account of some desperate a Swiss bank account, and nobody ever sees it. So the idea that we can help them, I've got problems with that. People have to help themselves. And ultimately, that it's going to have to come from within each of these countries that has a problem. They're going through, a lot of these countries are going through growing pains. Hopefully they will work it out. But I do believe that it's up to them to work it out. I don't believe that it's up to us to interfere in every country in the world and try to make it better. That was the problem with Iraq. We went into Iraq, which I think was a huge mistake. Saddam Hussein was a terrible despot, but he had the country under control. It was running. It was functional. Today, it's not even functional. So what's worse? I don't know. But the idea that they, in this part of the world, should accept American-style democracy is ridiculous. That's not part of their tradition. It's not part of their history. It's not part of their culture. It doesn't work for them. And for us to expect that everybody is going to function the way we do is ridiculous. A good example of this is Singapore. Have you been to Singapore?
No, I haven't. Mm-mm.
Beautiful place. Gorgeous. It's a small, it's a little island.
Yeah.
5 million people there. It is not a democracy. It is run by, it was run for years by this guy, Lee, who is a very bright man. I don't know if you've ever seen him interviewed, but the guy was a really bright guy. And he said, look, if we had democracy here, what happens with democracy, he said, is that people start to vote their own ethnic group instead of voting on real issues. So he said the Malays would vote for Malays, the Chinese would vote for Chinese, and so on and so forth. what they have is a kind of a benign dictatorship there that works, and it
Yeah.
works for them.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic country. They are extremely prosperous. Everyone has benefited from it. Just don't try to spit on the street or chew gum,
Yeah.
or they'll torture you.
Yeah.
But a small price to pay for what they're doing, and I can't criticize them. It works. What I'm saying is that these different parts of the world have to function in a way that they can accept. The big problem is, of course, in the Islamic world, which is, as I said, I compare it to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
But they have to work it out themselves.
Yeah.
What we can do is stop them from bringing it over here. We don't need it here.
Yeah.
We need to stay out of there. We should have stayed out of Iraq. The whole region was balanced because Iraq bounced off Iran. Now Iran is running all over the place and exporting terrorism. So we should have learned our lesson there. But if we want to save the world, one of the best things we can do is to kind of leave the world alone and let it do its own thing.
Okay, so take an isolationist sort of perspective or strategy.
I don't think that we can be isolationists ever again. I'm not saying we should be isolationists. I'm just saying that we should not try to impose our way of doing things on everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the communists tried to do that, and it was a disaster. And it's really no different with us. We try, we think that we have a moral high ground here because we're a democracy or a republic or whatever we are. But to try to impose that on a country that has, like Iraq, that has a whole different tradition, it's just not going to work. And people are going to die, and it's going to be a mess, which is what's going on right now. So I think we need to learn that lesson. I think Donald Trump understands that, by the way. That's one of the things that I like about Donald Trump is that he recognizes that there are limits to what we can do or what we should do in the world. That doesn't mean that we have to be isolationist.
Yeah.
Because that can never happen. The world is now, thanks to communication and the internet and everything, the world is what Thomas Friedman calls flat.
Yeah.
So forget about isolationism. That's a thing of the past. Although one of the things I point out in my book is that the approach that Obama has taken has been similar to the isolationist approach that the U.S. took in the 30s when they tried to say that, well, Hitler's not really a problem, and Nazism is not a problem, let's just stay out of it. That's the approach that Obama has taken toward Islam, and I think that's been a huge disaster. And I expect very much that President Trump will reverse that based on what he's told us so far about how he feels.
Gotcha. Okay. And my next question has to do with back to pollution and destruction of the biosphere. So, for example, did you know that it has been estimated that the rate of extinction of species is somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times the normal background rate of extinction? Were you aware of that estimate? Okay. Wait, you're saying so well?
There were no dinosaurs left either. I mean, extinction is a natural process, and people say, "Oh, the cockapoo bird in New Guinea is going to be extinct in 5 years." Well, so I mean, I don't worry. I don't stay awake at night worrying about that sort of thing. I really don't. The problem again goes back to population, because I think that the reason we're seeing a lot of this happen is because humans are starting to move into places where the animals used to be. And that's why you see, when I lived in Los Angeles, I used to see coyotes running down, Melrose Avenue in West LA. I mean, crazy, because the coyotes people have moved into the places where the coyotes live. That's happening all over the place. So that's if we can put a stop to population growth, I think that we can reduce the number of extinctions. But the fact that there are extinctions taking place, I think that's just essentially a natural biological process.
Oh yeah, no, it certainly is. Hence the concept of what's called the normal background rate of extinction. And I don't know how many species per year that normal background rate constitutes, but right now what is being observed is that extinctions are happening at a rate between 100 and 1,000 times the normal background rate. That's the crisis.
Well, the same thing happened when the dinosaurs disappeared. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it's just that's how it goes. Well, I was just in Africa recently. Yeah. I went on a safari, and they've got all these huge animals, elephants and rhinoceros and hippopotamus and whatever. You know, where are they going to go now? There's a limited range where they can go because people have moved. Though there's so many people that they have no place to be. So again, I relate that to population, and if we can cut down population growth, I think we'll see a reduction in the number of extinctions. I still say a lot of that is just part of evolution and the way it goes. I'm sorry, but you've been around for 50 million years. Give somebody else a chance. Same thing probably will happen to us at some point.
Well, that's precisely the concern. Stephen Hawking has estimated we've got maximum 1,000 years of existence left on this planet, given the mega trends that we're observing, many of which we're talking about.
Well, first of all, I think that's a very pessimistic view. I guess I have more faith in our ability to perpetuate ourselves and our own survival.
Yeah.
At the same time, I would have to say that if that does happen and we do become extinct, again, so what?
Well,
that's
Well,
at some point the sun is going to die. Our planet will, no longer be suitable for life as we know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll be gone. Eventually, it's going to happen. Whether it happens in 100 years, 1,000 years, or 1,000,000 years is the question, but it's going to happen. So we might as well get used to the idea that we're not going to be around forever.
Right, but if there are things that we can do to prolong it from 1,000 to 1,000,000 years.
Well, the one thing that I believe we can do is to work on population.
Yeah.
And retard population growth. I think that is and always has been the big deal. I mean, when you look at the number of people at the end of the last ice age, which I guess was 10 or 12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
How many people do you think? How many human beings were there on the entire planet?
Oh,
maybe a few thousand.
Yeah.
Seriously, a few thousand. And look at it. Not that long ago. I mean. At the time of Henry VIII, what's that, 500 years ago?
Yeah.
The population of England, of the British, was like 3 million people or something like that. And what is it now, 60 million?
Yeah.
70 million. So, in a very short period of time, population,
Oh, no, my goodness. No, it's more than doubled in my lifetime. And we added the last billion people in just 13 years. In the last 13 years, we added 1 billion people. So it is absolutely skyrocketing out of control. Now, I'm curious, Ed, what do you think about the hypothesis? For me, I relate to this more as a theory, but let's call it a hypothesis. The hypothesis that poverty is the main driver of overpopulation.
Poverty is the main driver of overpopulation.
Yeah. In other words, it's the poor people around the world who are reproducing at the highest birth rates. And that correlation is quite strong until you start bumping up against, starvation, right? Obviously, people who are starving to death can't really reproduce.
Well, I have a problem with that whole argument. I just I have a big problem with it, which does not say that I discount it altogether.
Sure.
The question is, as I was saying before, what do you do about poverty? I mean, we've tried to help poor countries by giving them money. It doesn't work. They have to work it out themselves. So whether it is poverty or not, you can't force people to end poverty. You can't force it. The whole idea that the UN can go in and end poverty. If that were the case, they would have done it 50 years ago. As I said, I'm a pragmatist, and to say that, well, the big problem in the world is overpopulation, and the reason we are overpopulated is because there's so many poor people, and therefore we have to end poverty. That smacks of utopianism, and I am suspicious of anybody who says we need to have a utopia, because every time somebody's tried to do that, it has turned into an authoritarian, totalitarian system. I just think that there are a lot of things that go on that we don't like. We prefer to see it otherwise. But what can we do about it? I think there's very little we can do about it. That's why I suggested earlier the best thing we can do is to keep ourselves strong, do our own thing, and be the guide for the rest of the world to see how we do it, and maybe that eventually they will get it. But to try to go into some of these countries, if you want to go into Zimbabwe, and if you think you're going to legislate away poverty, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there.
So I think what I'm saying is to have a theory to go around and say it's poverty. Poverty is what's killing the world right now. I just can't get on that bandwagon. It doesn't play for me.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. I want to do a quick time check. You had mentioned earlier that you had until 2:30.
10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. And I take a shower.
Okay, very good. So on the poverty hypothesis. So there's really two parts of it. One is just looking at the correlations between poverty and birth rate, right? That's a pretty objective analysis that we can do. So there's definitely a strong correlation between poverty and birth rate. As to what to do about that poverty, right? What just take a laissez-faire look, leave it alone. That's their problem. But leave it for them to work out themselves. Versus, versus, I'll just say the opposite of that, which is this whole space of do something other than let them work it out for themselves, right? So I just want to separate those two things. One is the correlation between poverty and overpopulation. The other is what to do about the poverty, right?
So what I'm saying is, it's fine to be a sociologist and say, oh, this is caused by this and that's caused by that. But what are you going to do about it?
Right.
We've had the UN for 70 years. We have other organizations. We've had money going in. The World Hunger Project or whatever they call that thing.
Yeah.
Well, what have they done? They haven't done anything. If anything, it's worse now, thanks to all of these altruistic people that are going around, the do-gooders. I don't see that they're helping it at all. In fact, they're probably making it worse. And again, from my perspective, I don't think that we are in a position to solve every problem that exists on this planet. And that's one of them. It's going to have to work itself out. I don't think that by legislating a redistribution of resources that's going to work, because we've tried that. It doesn't work. These people just, somebody's going to steal. You give it to them, some idiot will steal it, and he'll wind up in Switzerland with his bank account. So if you've got a better idea, let's hear it.
Yeah.
I'm open-minded. I'm willing to listen. But
Oh,
so
okay.
far, I haven't heard anything that makes any sense. The only thing that makes sense to me is that we, take care of ourselves. I don't think that's being selfish. I think that's just being practical. We can try to help where we can, but I don't think that it should be the mission of the United States to try to cure every one of the world's ills. It's just not going to happen. And when we do it, we just get slapped in the face for our efforts anyway. So why bother?
Well, I think what you're referring to, and I agree with you that there have been a lot of efforts where a lot of money has been spent that have been counterproductive. And I think that there's a hypothesis that I'm inclined towards, which is that these top-down approaches, where there's some government, whether it's a government body like the United Nations or a specific national government that says, hey, we know best what's right for you. We're going to come in and impose it, right, from the top down. The hypothesis being that those top-down approaches are essentially doomed to fail for any number of reasons, for a combination of reasons.
As I said earlier, very dangerous, and that's why I'm opposed to the UN and the EU.
Yeah.
What these people wind up doing is creating a totalitarian autocracy.
Yeah.
You're stupid. You don't know what we're going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you've got 1984, and everybody's you have a camera in your bathroom, and they're watching you when you're on the toilet.
Right. Exactly. So I'm certainly no fan of the top-down approach. But in terms of ideas for how we can positively influence the direction of things, even far from this country, in other countries, not that it should be like the Americans' responsibility to do this for other countries, but I'm just thinking kind of more globally, as a citizen of the world, as it were. Imagine a global community forming together to take this on as a global community, as just a totally volunteer effort.
You want to talk about a global community?
Yes.
We can't even get together on simple things. We can't. The Europeans can't get together to agree on anything. How are you going to get a global community that's going to end poverty? I mean, that is so far fetched to me.
Yeah.
It's absurd. As I said, I'm open-minded to any ideas.
Yeah.
But that sort of thing to me is just Pollyanna, and it's not going to happen in my lifetime. That's for damn sure. I think it's just fortunate if we don't have nuclear war. If we can get to that point where we can avoid nuclear war, that'll satisfy me. But to think that we're going to have a group of countries that is going to come together to help all of the people in the third world, and we're going to cure poverty and disease, and we're going to do. They've tried it. It doesn't work.
It hasn't. Well, what they've tried hasn't worked, but there are some things that have yet to be tried.
All right. What has to be tried? What?
Okay. So let me tell you about one of the things that we're developing within Radish, and Can you see this flyer if I hold it up close enough? I just kind of wanted to give a little visual to walk through what it is.
Okay. Here's my visual. Can you see this?
Yes, I can. in lies we trust. Ed Brodow. And I'm looking forward to reading the book and then having a follow-up conversation afterwards. But anyway, here's the basic idea. We call this strategy the Hungerless Games, and this is just the beginning. But the idea behind the Hungerless Games is that we're creating a new sector of the global economy called a compassionate economy, consisting of companies identified by CCC, certified compassionate companies. And what these companies do is, among other things, they donate 100% of their profits to the permanent eradication of hunger. And each company that's participating gets to choose exactly how it's donating its funds and to whom and for what program. And the vision. I'm just telling you the vision, and then you can say, well, how are you going to get that to work? And that's a subsequent conversation, because the devil's in the details. But the big high-level picture is we're going to create a liquid marketplace ideas, for programs, for organizations, for ending hunger. And my suspicion is they will mostly be local-based, locally controlled, locally operated programs for eradicating hunger in a way that is holistic. And what I mean by that is there's ways to do agriculture that's harmful to the planet and to the environment, to the soil, to the water, to the air, etc. And there are ways to do agriculture that is actually healing and regenerative to the planet. So when I say end hunger holistically, what I mean is the latter, that we would do the agriculture.
I think it's a great idea. I think it would make a great novel.
Yes.
I think you could write a novel about this.
Yeah.
But in the real world, you're going to ask companies to donate their profits, all 100% of their profits.
Yeah.
Number one, where are they going to get their capital from?
Yeah.
Number two, who are they going to give all that money to? Are they going to give it to the UN? Who are they going to give it to?
No. Not to the UN. Not to the UN.
Give it to George Soros? Who the hell are they going to give? How does this work? How do you want to set up local organizations all over the world? You know, this is like, I'm sorry, but this is pie in the sky, thinking, and as I say, it would make a great novel. Maybe you could make a movie out of it. Maybe you could get Michael Moore, make a movie out of this. But in practical terms, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be facetious about this. I mean to put down. I mean your motivations are. It's a great idea, as I say, hypothetically and theoretically. Yeah. But as a practical matter, forget it.
Well,
just plain forget it.
No, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. In fact, you've raised a lot of very good questions. I happen to have answers for all of them, but I don't want to force them down anyone's throat. If you're simply not willing to listen to what those answers are,
I'm willing to listen. But as I said, I haven't heard anything from anywhere that I've read or seen anything that I think would be workable or that would make any sense. So if you have answers, so perhaps you could send me something. I'll be happy to listen to it or read about it or whatever and give you my feedback. But I'm just telling you how I feel right now.
Sure.
Not being aware of what you have done and not having heard what you have come up with. So please don't point a finger at me and say, "Hey, Ed, you're not willing to listen to what we're saying."
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything yet. So
sure.
Give me a book.
Very good. I'll send you some material, and then we can have a follow-up conversation about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All righty. Good. And actually, that's really the whole point of this whole series that we're doing, is we're reaching out to the smartest people we can find who have a perspective that's that they can articulate about the best approach that we can take, might take, should take. It's an exploratory conversation. It's not an absolute black or white. There's one right answer.
I hear you, and I think that's fine. At the same time, we can't ignore the momentary, more practical day-to-day problems that we have, and that's what this is all about.
Right.
In this book, I'm dealing with problems that we're facing right now, such as Islamic terrorism.
Yeah.
Such as healthcare. What do we do about healthcare?
Yeah.
What do we do about climate change, if anything?
Yeah.
What do we do about racism? I talk about racism.
Yeah.
And what do we do about things like political correctness? And how do we stop the divisiveness that has taken hold of this country in the last few years?
Yeah.
So these are issues that I discuss in my book. And the point I'm making is that we are being lied to by politicians and the media. So it's up to each one of us. And I think you would go along with this way of thinking. I say that it's up to you and me. We have to be critical about what we hear and what we believe.
Yeah.
And we have to take responsibility. Each of us has to take responsibility for doing research and finding out what the facts are.
Yes.
The people that are telling us what the facts are are telling us a lot of untruths.
Yeah.
That is a very, very dangerous situation that we're facing right now today.
Yeah.
So this book, I'm telling facts. I'm saying here are the lies and here are the truths here are the facts about those issues.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about that than I am with how do we save the whole planet. And that, I guess, is the difference between someone like you and someone like me. But I think there's room for both of us.
Oh, no, absolutely. In fact, I would love to do, and I, in fact, offered to do a separate program, a whole separate interview focused on your book. I'd like to read it through completely first and therefore be prepared. But we can go chapter by chapter. And because it's simply a matter of focus, the focus of this present conversation, not that I'm unwilling to deviate from it, but the original focus was the world's problems. I would love to have a separate interview and conversation about the focus of your book, In Lies We Trust.
I'd be happy to do that.
Great.
I hope you're happy with the fact that I have answered your questions and I told you what my view is about how to deal with the world's problems right now. And I take it that they are somewhat at odds with your view, but that's what makes horse racing.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's why I'm doing this as a series. I want to get a broad diversity of opinions and perspectives. That's part of what makes this country great, is that we can just bounce around all these diverse perspectives. My goal is that once we've got a big spectrum of perspectives, then the next stage is a sort of synthesis, if you will. Now, this is at the level of the world's problems, right? We could have a separate whole track on, American problems and opportunities, right? It's just a matter of scope.
Well, again, it's a different, we talked about a certain book earlier today that I reviewed, which spelled out all of the problems on the planet, and then the author gives us as a solution something that was totally naive and absurd. This is what I see as being a problem. And everybody says, "Oh, we got problems. We have this problem. We have that problem." But what are we going to do about it? It's I say that we are better off spending our energies on fixing the problems that we can fix, getting our own backyard in shape, and then let's move from there.
Gotcha.
At this point, I have to go take a shower because
Sure.
My doctors have advised me that I have to take a shower at least once a month. 8 days a day. So
okay, very good.
Been a pleasure.
Ed, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you so much. Ed Brodow, author of In Lies We Trust and other great books out there, and we'll be looking forward to follow up next time. Thank you so much for your time, Ed. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is Jamin Shively, president of Radish.org, thanking you all for watching and looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.